Well, today we're doing a brake job on a 2003 Chevrolet Suburban. We're going to be using Detroit Axle's kit, and it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Went ahead and removed the wheel. If you're thinking about doing your own brake job, you probably already know how to take a wheel off. So here we go. You start by taking your caliper off. There's two bolts, one in the top, one in the bottom. It's a 12mm wrench. On the Suburbans, it's tight in here to get a socket in, so I always just use a wrench. Comes right off. No problem. But as you can see right here, this is our problem. All this pitting and rust. I probably could have had it turned out of it, but this is not going to leave a lot of meat in here for heat dissipation. They'll just warp right again. The back side's in pretty bad shape as well, which I'll show you that when I get this off. And don't lose your bolts. They're very important. Don't ask me how I know that. Just take and pry this out. And some of you mechanics out there, if you watch this, are gonna shake your head. But it's what I've got. It's what we'll go with. Once I get this pad off, I'll show you that we have plenty of wear on these pads. We're going to change them out anyway. Plenty of thickness, plenty of life left in this pad. But anytime you're changing your rotors, you're best just go ahead and change your pads too. They're not that expensive. As you can see on this one, may be hard to see on the camera, back side of this rotor is chewed up pretty bad, and it's grooved this pad pretty substantially. So you wouldn't want to put this on a new rotor. So I'm gonna, and this is the dual piston. I've never seen a single piston setup on the Suburbans. Apparently there is, but this is the dual piston setup. And really cheap tool, $5-10 at your local parts store. Take one of your old pads, lay it in here, and because this is a two piston design, this is made more for a single piston. We've got this kind of in the way. So what I always do is I put the old pad in, and this is going to push more on this piston. But I just kind of work it back and forth. I'll get this one pushed in a little bit. I'll move to this side. And there's much better tools in this. Got a little squeeze handle. I'm cheap. I just had this thing around forever and don't want to spend the money on the more expensive, make your life easier tool. what happens on these, if you just push on one of these pistons, the other piston is going to push out. So it's best if you have something like the old brake pad, put in there, keeps things going even. I used to use big C clamps and put them on, lock everything down, and it was a royal pain. One more time on the other side and we'll have the caliper run back in. You have to do this because your new brake pads are going to be thicker than the old ones. And if you don't do this, then your caliper is not going to go back over them. Lay that up there, keep stress off of that rubber brake hose. And I forgot to tell you, on these that came out of here that held the caliper in, they're just 12 millimeter. Now take this off. Isn't on the 03 Suburbans, it is an 18 millimeter and it is back in here. Don't know, I doubt I can get the camera there to show you. But these are a little more in there. We may have to use a little persuasion. And I want to get hate for this too, but it is what it is. And we'll leave this top one in here. I'm not going to take it all the way out just yet. Because once I get this, if I take it all the way out, get this bottom one loose, it's just going to flop over and get me aggravated. And again, hate all you want from me using a hammer on a ratchet or anything else. But I use what I have that's readily available to me. Now, get this bolt out by hand. 18 millimeter coarse thread. There's the other one. Now on this we'll remove these clips because the Detroit Axle brake pads actually come with all your new hardware, which is really nice, especially for the price. And these pins, you just pull the rubber boot off from around the lip. And notice they're kind of dry, so we're going to have to put some grease on those. We're not reusing those calipers, so and in with the Detroit Axle brake pads, they also give you the grease. That's another thing you're not going to find in even some of your upper priced pads. That's not a lot for these pins, but they are sealed, and it doesn't take a lot of this grease just to keep everything moving. Just pop your pin back in, roll the little rubber boot back over that little lip, seals everything off nicely. There's one pin done. We're going to use a little brake parts cleaner to get that old off. Probably should have done that on the other one, but it didn't have much at all on it anyway. And something else that people are going to hate on, I'm not wearing gloves. I hate wearing gloves when trying to work on a vehicle. I can't feel anything. It drives me nuts. That one is in, on, locked, ready to go. So this part of it, for right now, is done. Now the fun part, if this will come off, because there's a parking brake shoe inside here. So if it's got a little lip on the back, it may be, nope, never mind, that made a fool out of me. And this is the back side of the rotor. You can see it's really chewed up. We're kind of wondering why this thing didn't have very good brakes. Alright, now the nice pretty stuff. The new Detroit Axle drilled and slotted coated rotor. I think this one's coated. Coated with zinc. I'm not even going to try to say that. It's going to make me sound even dumber than I already am. Anyway, this thing comes coated for rust prevention. Most brake rotors, when you get them, they're covered in oil to keep them from rusting. This one's nice and clean, no oil, no grease. I'm still going to spray it down with Detroit Axle's brake parts cleaner that they send in these kits. Just spray it off, make sure all the little goodies that may be on there are off. And that stuff dries really fast. Slide that on. And there she is. Simple as that. Now on to the hardware side of things. We're only going to need one of these clips that goes in the top of the caliper, two of these that go in here. She's a little crusty, but should be all right. Helps if I put it in here the right way. Just take it, slides in Make sure it's all pushed down nice and tight. And then your brake pads slide inside of these. There we go again. We're trying to put things in upside down and backwards. And that is done. And these also look like they're coated to help with rust prevention. It doesn't say. I may get with email Detroit Axle and see if their hardware is also coated. That's really nice to get these that are coated of any kind of coating for rust prevention. Really helps, especially where we live. And I went with the drilled and slotted rotors. I've got them for the front too. It was more of a price thing. We found these very reasonably priced for the entire kit, front and rear. They were drilled and slotted. Detroit Axle also has the solid rotors, like a bigger OE rotors. This is not a race car. It's not an off-road vehicle where we're going to be pounding it in the sand or mud or dirt. But I do like the stopping power and the reduced brake fade of a drilled and slotted rotor. So all I'm doing here is I'm putting those large 18mm bolts back in to bolt this back up. And I'm sure there's a torque spec on those. I just tighten them up till I can't turn them no more, and then tap them a couple of times and never seem to have any issues. Now, something kind of curious that Detroit Axle has done is they've put this green, I don't know what it is, if it's epoxy or what, on the rear pads. I've looked at the front, they do not have this, but it's on all four for the rear. So Detroit Axle, if you so happen to see this video, please tell me what this stuff is. Be nice to know. So anyway, back to what we're doing. Here are our brake pads. One has the squealer. You want one, there's two pads in the kit that have these little squealers. And you want one on each side. What this is a brake wear indicator. When you hear your brakes squealing, it means your pad is almost wore completely out. So you want to, when you hear this, you want to change your pads. Some squealers work, some don't. Some people pop them off because they don't know what they are. And it doesn't really matter. These are the same on each side, so you can put the pads however in here. Or at least the last I remember we could. And sometimes they can be a little pain to get in here on the Chevrolets for some reason. Just slide right in, give them a little tap, make sure they're seated because there's a pain spot back there. Took one out, already had one out. Imagine that. This retaining clip here sits up in here, like so. I think, can't remember which direction it goes in, but it only goes in one way. And there it is. Now we will put our caliper back on. You may have to push these in just a little to get it clear, because what those pins do is every time you push your brakes, this actually moves. And these have to allow for movement in and out. Of course, there's always that one bolt that wants to be a pain, but we got it. Got my 12mm wrench. And once you grease these pins, they will spin in there, and they do have flat spots where you can put the wrench on so you can tighten these up. So that one down there is spinning, and that one's going to as well, it looks like. Maybe I can hold on to this one. And that's all there is to doing the rear brakes on a 2003 Chevrolet Suburban. It should be the same from 99 to 06. But that's it. Pretty simple, straightforward. After you get these put on, we'll do the other side, which is filming the one. You want to make sure to pump your brakes back up before you move the car. If not, brake pedal is going to go to the floor. What it's doing is reloading those pistons back to where they're touching the pads. So if you just jump in, put your foot on the floor, think, that's a little mushy, but it'll be okay, and you take off, you're not going to stop until about 2 or 3 pumps of the brake to get this back in and working again. But this is, like I say, this is the first time we've ever used Detroit Axle stuff. Their kits come with everything we needed to do this install with new hardware, new pads, the grease, parts cleaner, and we're fixing to take a trip. It's about 6 hours one way with the family in this 275,000 miles. It rolled over that this morning, and we'll see how good they are. We'll do a review afterwards, and my honest opinion at this time is it seems to be pretty good stuff. If it's not, believe me, I will let you know. But for now, as far as ease of use, everything fit and finish, really nice. We're going to go do the front, have a video on that here shortly. See you later.